I think right now.
I guess we have to start, eh? Well, since it's. And just reminded, it is 6:30, so we're still missing one counselor, but we'll call the meeting to order. And I just want to remind everybody that our meetings are, even though we can't be open to the public physically, and our delegation that's here, is that our meetings are all live streamed and recorded, so just please remember that when any conversations or whatever going on, we are aware of. The Township of Black River Matheson acknowledges the Abitibi and Anishinaabe Nation traditional territory. We live, play, and work here together, and together we shall build a strong and inclusive community. And based on the recent tragedy we've had in the municipality of Victor Lee, who is the brother of our executive assistant here at the township, I would just like to respectfully ask everybody to take a moment of silence in memory of Victor and his family. Right, thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. And please keep Victor's family in your hearts and minds. They're going through some pretty tough times. First item is a confirmation of our agenda. And I need a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Brewer, seconded by Councillor Rondo. Left side's weak, fine. Madam Clerk, could you please read the resolution?
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Rondo, that the agenda for the regular council meeting of March 28th, 2023 be approved as printed.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
If council could add an item to the agenda, item 7B, which will be the notice of resignation from Councillor Dan DeMarchi. And if council would also add a closed meeting to the agenda, which would fall under section 13. The closed meeting has to do, with section 239 subsection B, a personal identifiable individual, and 239 subsection 2, clause D, negotiations.
All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried. Next item. Does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Item 4, so we're going to go into adoption minutes. Need to move in a seconder again. I got Councillor Brewer and Councillor Neal.
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Neal, that the following minutes are hereby adopted. Minutes of the regular council meeting held March 14th, 2023. And the following minutes are hereby acknowledged. Minutes of the Board of Health meeting held January 26th, 2023, and minutes of the Library Board meeting held March 6th, 2023.
All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried. And item number 5 is consent agenda. And we need a mover and a seconder again. Councillor Rondo, Councillor Diamond.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I ask to remove 5B and C, please?
Okay, so, Mr. Mayor, members of council, when a member asks for an item to be removed from the consent agenda, it's not a request. The moment it's asked, it's, permitted. So I'll just read the motion as amended.
Sounds good. Please do.
Actually, I'll read the motion with the amendment, I should say,
Great.
unless there's others.
Is there anything else council need to have removed from that consent agenda? If not, we'll move ahead.
Moved by Councillor Rondo, seconded by Councillor Diamond. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the March 28th, 2023 council agenda be received, except items 5B and 5C. As the motions contained therein be approved and recorded as listed below.
All those in favor of the motion? Seeing no objections, carried.
So, council 5B and 5C will be reflected on the agenda under 9B and 9C.
Thank you. Then we move along to the portion that we'll move into the delegation portion, which is item 6. And I'd like to welcome Albert and Janet to our meeting. And I think you probably already understand the whole process that as a delegation, you're allowed a specific amount of time to make a presentation. Of course, if for some reason there's a reason to change that, we can adjust it, but we like to try to stay within that process because it keeps everything moving along. And if there's time at the end of your presentation and it's concise and efficient, and there's questions from council, we'll entertain those too. Just as long as everybody understands, we don't get into a debate or an argument session here, we just deal with things as they're presented. And we try to proceed and then try to answer your question.
How long we got this way?
Normally 15 minutes is our little,
Is that each or?
no, 1%,
Oh,
unless you want to split it. If
Well,
it's a need to split,
yeah, Janet's going to see what she has to say. And I can run through mine probably pretty quick.
that's good, we'll let you do that.
I
Oh,
don't want
councilor,
to get more of your time and a half this first.
You get an extra few seconds to get prepared, Councilor Gadry. Thank you for showing up. Well, Councilor Gadry, get situated here a little bit and then we'll let you move ahead with your presentation, so it doesn't need to. Gadry probably have time to finish the meeting this afternoon, go home and have supper and come back again. Councilor Gadry? No, I just want to make sure you have time to get organized, so that you can actually listen to the presentation. All right, I'll open the floor to the delegation.
I'll start. My name is Janet Romalewski and I have been a resident of Black River, Matheson for 49 years. I've been at my present residence along the Waterbeg River, which is downstream from the dam. It will be 34 years this year. The concern for coming before Mayor and Council is in regards to the MNR's operation of the dam. On or about November the 4th, 2022, Mr. Fuller, who operates the dam, released a high capacity of water flow. And then 4 to 6 days after, we had a heavy rainfall, which caused my property to have some flooding. But my neighbor's property was severely flooded losing land, and this is an ongoing problem, as well as other damages. This flooding was noticed around 4 o'clock in the morning on Friday, November the 11th, 2022. Albert, my neighbor, and myself tried a number of times to contact Mr. Fuller, but his voicemail said it was full. 3 days later, on Monday, November the 14th, 22, I finally spoke to Mr. Fuller and explained our situation. Mr. Fuller said he would have someone come and talk to us and look over the damage and see if we can work something out from this happening again, and would call me back later today. Days went by, but no response from Mr. Fuller. Prior to speaking to Mr. Fuller, I contacted 911, but they could not help. I then called the deputy manager of the M&R on flood issues, and he advised me to call my township office, and they will provide me with sandbags and should have an emergency assistance plan. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was frustrated, stressed out, adrenaline high, no one to contact or help. The river was gushing frantically and rising. What would anyone in this room have done in this situation? In the past few years, we were concerned about the high water levels. We contacted Mr. Fuller and he told us, I'll take this into consideration. Between Mr. Fuller and Mr. Mazzetti, from November the 14th, 2022 and November the 25th, 2022, I was frustrated and felt we were getting the runaround. I had asked them both 2 to 3 times to come and view the situation and the damage of the property, and they declined. Even though in their own instructions for public safety for dam operations, it says they are to write an incident report and have a competent person to come and view the situation. There are other instructions that have not been followed according to their own safety operations for dam owners. So on Monday, November the 29th, Albert and myself went to the township office and delivered an envelope addressed to mayor and council to view concerning the flood damage on the property of Albert's. There was a video and other information in this envelope. From Monday, November the 28th, 2022 to December the 6th, 2022, Albert and myself kept in touch with Cassandra and wanted to know if the mayor and council had viewed the information that was in the envelope. To our understanding, they had not seen this information. Cassandra said she will send a letter to Mr. Mazzetti that Albert and I had followed the proper procedures according to the Ministry of Natural Resources policy. She also mentioned that the township has no jurisdiction as to what happened to us. It will give us some contact people that can help us to come to a safe resolution. I want to clarify 2 issues that Mr. Fuller said at March 14th, 2023 council meeting. Number 1, prior to calling Mr. Fuller on December the 14th, 2022, Albert mentioned to me that the river was just high and no water was released by the operator. I should have listened to Albert, but I did not. Mr. Fuller mentioned I had called him to see if he had removed any logs, and he told me he hadn't. Yes, I did contact him because when I see the high water level in the river, my mind thinks the worst. Stress and anxiety kick in, and until this terrible incident is corrected by the M&R and with the help of mayor and council, I will be in this state of mind. Number 2, on Wednesday, November the 23rd, 2022, when I spoke to Mr. Mazzetti by phone, he mentioned he was not aware of our property, was not aware that where our property was located and thought we were higher up, not on low land. But Mr. Fuller mentioned during his demonstration, from my understanding, knew quite well where we were located. If it wasn't for contacting our counselor, Mr. DeMarchi, and him coming to look at the extreme flood damage to the property and taking an interest in bringing it to the attention of mayor and council, I believe it would have been swept under the rug, but that's my opinion. I want to thank Mr. DeMarchi for his time and effort on this important matter, and for the mayor and council for taking an interest and listening. And I pray that all parties can sit down and come to an agreement that changes the operation of the dam. It needs to be made for the safety of downstream property owners. It is too heavy for a burden for one councillor. In Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14, in the Bible, it says, where there is no counsel, the people fall. But in a multitude of counselors, there is safety. So I hope that you can apply this Proverbs to our situation. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Albert. Stands, all right? Hey, I just want to address this here, some of the things that Craig was showing at his last meeting. About the watershed, there's two sections there where he says it's 500 some, there's only 300 some square kilometers that involve the river directly besides the Waterbag Dam, okay? But where they're showing here that directly flows into the river, they've been clear cut. It's all been clear cut, never mind all the other atrocities going on there with oil in the creeks and everything. Mazzetti doesn't seem to care about that. I filed him a direct, like, I didn't care about this. No one here would know my name, would ever heard of me. I would stay quiet in the bush if it wasn't for this matter. But we're being treated as if irrelevant, and it's being made to sound like record rainfalls. But if that's the case, it means it could happen again. They're not willing to change any of their operating procedures. Here in this diagram where it says it drops 7 meters right at the beginning, and if that makes it a fast flowing, that's saying that what he's doing directly affects the river. You understand? I can go over a lot more. I'm gonna try and keep it short. The dam was proposed as being built as prevent flooding, but we weren't taken into consideration. If it was about flooding he would have like I said, he just removed logs. You must have heard the that I put on there, right? So all I'm saying is that if they're not willing to change any of the operating procedures, a water level set for primarily recreational purposes is a threat to others, and going by their own operating procedures of safe operating procedures for the dam, they're not following it. There should have been a report made. That's their own procedures, as Janik said. And it's like they just want to keep it quiet. I think they need to reevaluate the water level up there. It needs to be dropped. They are no longer keeping the river way clear. So we got logs in the river. The logs that came down the river in this, if they piled up in the wrong time, wrong place, and they're released, I wouldn't have a warning. So when they sold the dam as being primarily for flooding reasons, then we should be the only ones taken into consideration, not a water levels where the fish are not even taken into consideration. Lower water levels would help the fish spawning grounds, not higher levels that late in the year. And he says, and it's saying that we knew the rain was coming, that's why they released. Here by their own charts, that's when they release every year. It was not to save, not to release water ahead of time in preparations of rainfall. It's just a scheduled release after every long weekend. So everybody don't know me, but everybody that knows Janet knows she ain't a liar. And when he says he hasn't had calls, he did the past 3 years. So he could blame record rainfalls last year on last year. What was the reason for the year before and the year before that? I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do think that it's important, the public safety dam. If we're going to post stuff about beer balls in the woods, I think it's very important that the trash that's out there in regards of oil everywhere and stuff, and the evidence there is very important. Should be a protected area. So it's a watershed, it's top of a watershed. And a toxic wasteland that we're making this world, that would still be an oasis. It's an embarrassment to this town, and we should start caring. And that is in township property where this is going on, not just water. Now, if they're going to build $5 million dam, imagine if 5 million was influx in the box. For people that don't pay taxes, what was the point? They say it's to keep me from flooding, but I don't believe that. I believe that everything would flow slowly into there, into the river, not just be pushed over by every drop of rain landing on a 21 square kilometer basin and being pushed over the dam. We had a problem in April again. I know when it's released, when their overflow weir takes over, or if they open. And April, we had an issue because we had a lot of rain, flooded my garden, it floated. And again, their overflow weir takes over because they sold it as low cost operation. Now they'd have to go back and reevaluate that. Now, I want the Abitibi WMP organization or whatever reevaluate that situation. It seems they don't want anybody touching that whole situation. I hear I don't know, I haven't looked in, but the more I delve in there, the more it stinks. And the people should care about that. We're about equality. Well, is that equal? Honestly, imagine if you had 5 million flux in your community or your community. Try and keep it short.
No, thank you, Albert. Thank you, Janet. Is there any councilors with questions regarding the presentation? No one has any questions? I was just gonna make one comment. I just wanted to say that yes, Councilor DeMarchi did take it upon himself to get a little bit more heavily involved than any of us did. I know I responded to your one email, Albert, and I know that wasn't sufficient. But I know at the end of the day, like the information that you provided was given to staff. And the staff did deal with it and actually made the move to at least involve the MNR now. At least now we have a relationship. No, it's not perfect. I know we haven't resolved anything officially or finally, but at least we have a relationship with the MNR.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, about the sandbags, I don't want to take anything in this community with a measly $4 million. Sandbags are a joke, okay? I was just humoring the MNR guy. I don't expect you just for me as someone in your, so kind, I'm only one man. Okay, and if it's just for me, but when I made my proposal before council, first and foremost was for some kind of emergency response for the area, because I was stuck going 3 days straight, moving stuff. I won't be calling my pants down again, you know what I mean? I'll prepare myself, I'll set a float or whatever, but this is a town issue. Because before I bought that place, before stick was laid, Brian Remolesky did his diligence, and I knew that and said, well, it must be okay. It was approved by the municipal inspector. And so I feel the town needs to get behind our side and get the MNR on it to change their procedures. Other than that, it's one or the two of the issues. Either it's a town issue or it's an MNR issue. I say it's MNR. I believe your inspector came there, had a look and see the general stream. That's what it is. When there's, you can see my video, I posted the last thing on. I'm paddling gently up the river in spring when all the runoff is at its max. That's a telltale sign of everything.
Okay, thanks, Albert. Chris, could I get your comment as far as the responsibility side of it? Like in regards to like what the municipality can actually do with this other than what we've done? Just for the general benefit of everybody.
Oh, it's correct. It's the responsibility of the ministry. We have an opportunity to put somebody on the water management plan, figure the water treatment plan. That might be an opportunity for the township.
Like my place is condemnable with foreseeable future, because now everybody knows when river's overwhelmed or whatever, the river wants to redirect. And it wasn't just last year, it was the year before and the year before. The bank was just being chewed away when they released water every time at the same time of year, November, the end of the long weekend, after the long weekend. So now the river wants to go towards the road. We can't go that way. It wants to come towards the road. I have no way to fix this. And it shouldn't be my responsibility anyways. The bank was fine before that's the way things open. I've always lived in the shadow of doubt. I have no problem. It's not fair for the other parties involved.
And you know, the only thing that, and like Chris was crazy about part, and you made mention of yourself, the unfortunate thing is it is the responsibility of the MNR and their departments. And the only thing that we can do, even from the municipal level, is to support you with trying to work with them to see if there's anything that they can adjust on this.
Really appreciate it.
And then on the other side of the coin, in regards to the bank erosion, the MNR has offered to provide the sandbags. And I'm sure there's ways to make, I mean, I know that's not your perfect solution.
But it wouldn't help. My weed towel would just let it in anyways. That's what was happening, right? It was going under my place from the weed towel. So I gotta dig all that up. I have no problem. All I'm saying is I don't want to fall in the town. But just having the town behind us sure helps a lot.
Well, the township will continue to work with the MNR to see if there's any way to reduce your future impacts. But I can't guarantee anything more than what, and I know you don't believe anything that the MNR has already told us, Albert, you've already made that clear to me. But I just wanted to say that without getting into this debate that I said we weren't gonna have, is I just wanted to make it clear that we will continue to work with the M&R to see if there's any way to further resolve it. And if there is anything along the lines of sandbags and stuff that you need, it's available. And like I told you before, when the springtime comes, I will come out and take a look personally.
That's
I know it's
a
student that-
burden on the town too, you know, like by making a year burden.
It's not- it's not my
carry
burden, Albert.
Sandbags and
Albert, it's not my burden. I'm just gonna go and show my actual same interest that Councilor DeMarco had made. That when he went, and I didn't go at the right time, I guess, but I will go in the spring and see exactly what's going on. And I can report back to council and I can report back to staff. And we can continue to engage the M&R. And as Chris had mentioned, we've been allowed a position on the Abitibi Water Management Plan group. And we will be putting that councilor on there tonight. And then at least we'll actually have a voice there that can actually work on it.
2 residents being displaced possibly for recreational purposes. It sounds pretty ridiculous to me, but here's the public safety for dam operators. That's what I want to follow. I want it reevaluated by a competent person, as it says. In the story.
And my suggestion, Albert, and I don't want to cut you off, but basically we're at the end of the time allotted for this. But I would really like it if you would continue to try to follow up with the M&R. And if you don't have any resolution with the M&R, you're more than welcome to contact me if nobody contacts you. And I will contact them myself and ensure that they at least talk to you. I mean, at the end of the day, that we can do at least that much. After that, as far as forcing them to do much, I don't know about that. But maybe that councilor is going to be sitting on the Abitibi Water Management Plan and bring this issue forward a little bit further and maybe change something. As you know, and as you've made it very clear, there's no guarantees in this world that we can fix anything correctly or to anybody's satisfaction, but we can try.
All right.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
see what happens.
Thank you.
We are pressed for time, given the fact you only have so much time to file on the reports, right? So we need. It's already been 6 months. You know what I mean?
Thank you
Hope to
very
hear
much.
from you.
Thank you very much for both of your time and the presentation. And do we need to let them know or can?
No, it's good. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. And I normally I would invite you to stay and listen to us spin our wheels or do our work here tonight. But unfortunately, we aren't, because of the circumstances of the room, we can't allow the general public in for other than the purpose of a delegation. So as much as I don't want to ask you to leave, I actually respectfully do ask you to, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Stay in touch. Thank you. So I guess our next item is 7A. And that's exactly what we were just talking about, is the M&R council appointment. I need a mover and a seconder, Councilor Brewer and Councilor Rondo.
Moved by Councillor Brewer, seconded by Councillor Rondo, that the following member of council be appointed to the Abitibi River Water Management Plan Standing Advisory Committee.
Somebody volunteering. Is anybody interested in sitting on the Abitibi Water Management Plan?
I nominate Dan.
That's probably why he isn't here. Is there no councilor that's interested or willing? Councilor Diamond, you're willing? Councilor Diamond, we'll put Councilor Diamond's name on the resolution. Thank you, Councilor Diamond. I would have put my name forward, but I wanted to see if there was a councilor that had as much or more interest than I did. And we've read the resolution, so we finally have somebody that volunteered, and I appreciate that. All those in favor of the resolution? Seeing no objections, carried. Thank you very much, Councilor Diamond. Another meeting for your lovely schedule. And I guess we're gonna go into, okay. So we've got the addition to our agenda tonight for item 7B, which is in regards to Councilor DeMarco sent staff and myself an email today informing us that he's resigning effective today as a councillor for Ward 4. So that has to be, as for Cassandra's information to me tonight, that we have to bring that to the attention of council and the public in an open session. And then we'll start the process to replace Councilor Markey. I need a mover and a second. Okay, Councilor Gadry and Councilor.
Moved by Councillor Gadry, seconded by Councillor Druer, that council accept with regret the resignation of Dan DeMarchi as Ward 4 councillor with his notice dated March 28th, 2023, as per section 260, subsection 1 of the Municipal Act, and that council declare a vacancy in Ward 4 as per section 262, subsection 1 of the Municipal Act. And finally, that council proceeds to fill the vacancy by the appointment process as one of the legislative processes reflected in section 263, subsection 5 of the Municipal Act.
And yes, Madam Clerk.
So council, when it comes to a vacancy, the moment you receive the notice, you are to pass it an open and you're to declare the seat vacant, which you've done tonight. Which also means that the calendar starts or time starts to actually fill the position, should you do an appointment, and you have 60 days to do it. The two methods that you can replace a council member is 1 by appointment or 2 by election. So being honest with council, considering there was not a lot of interest and no one ran against Councillor DeMarchi in Ward 4, it can become a costly process to do a by-election. So just given the fact that there was not much interest, no one ran against Councillor DeMarchi. It's being suggested or recommended by staff that council move forward with an appointment process. Should you move forward with an appointment process, one has already been established with the last council. We'll bring that back to council at the next meeting for you to review and for you to make any changes if you feel any changes are needed. And in the meantime, we will advertise the vacancy.
All makes sense to council? No further questions regarding the item? If not, I'll ask for a vote on the motion. All those in favor? No objection, carried. Issue.
Yes, yes.
So we're moving to 8A, it's a notice of motion. And yes, Madam Clerk.
So notice of motion, considering this is Councillor Rondo's motion, she will, I put her as a mover,
Yes, we need a second.
but we need a seconder to table it and discuss it.
We have Councilor Good.
Moved by Councillor Rondo, seconded by Councillor Druer, that council direct the fire chief to draft a policy outlining the specifics of annual home inspections and training that includes water shuttle exercises.
Chief Lam, would you like to comment before we move the resolution forward?
I provided, pardon me?
Or just a suggestion, anything?
I provided a summary from the last council meeting, when questions were asked. If you'd like, I could read my report.
Sure, why don't you? I know I've read it before, but let's bring it back to everybody's attention. Since you took the time out of your busy life to come here, we'll let you speak.
Appreciate it. Okay, to Mayor and Council, I'm here tonight to bring some clarification to the questions and comments raised by Councilor Rondo. Councilor Rondo has on many occasions raised her concerns and opinions in regard to a dual residential fire we had in the community of Old Fire January 22nd, 2022. I'd like to set the stage of the conversation around the events of that evening. The volunteer firefighters of Black River Madison were dispatched to a structure fire at approximately 1948 on January 22nd, 2022. As per our protocol, this is an all brigade response, meaning Raymore, Madison, and Belgani were dispatched. The weather that evening was around -20°C with heavy winds out of the north. Raymore was first on scene and radioed back to the other trucks. The structures were fully engulfed, heavy flames and smoke towards Euclid Avenue. Second structure had flames showing in the eaves and the roof. Trucks will need to access the structure from Gleason Avenue and Ross Street. Without hesitation, water shuttle was initiated. This included pulling water from Raymore Station and Talbot Lake. Water shuttle is required as there is no working fire hydrants in Whole Fire. Firefighters also immediately set up a portable pump in the creek that runs along Euclid Avenue. with 2.5 fire lines. Note setting up the portable pump was not an easy task. The portable pump is a heavy unit and snow was almost waist deep and the creek was down an embankment. Due to the extreme weather conditions, firefighters had to be assigned to monitor the portable pump continuously, as if the pump were to fail or run out of gas, the pump would have froze within minutes. After numerous attempts to contact unit number 8 from Belgani, as it was apparent we had no volunteer firefighters from Belgani responding. One firefighter from Madison in his own pickup truck to Belgani and drove unit number 8 to Whole Player. This increased our fleet and adding additional water to the scene and putting another fire truck in the water shuttle fleet. Other items to note: back lane on the west side of the house was not plowed, making access difficult. Hydro lines were failing from the northwest side of the house, sparking and landing in the water, putting firefighters at risk. We had to move more to the northeast to fight the fire. Unit number 15, the pump failed, making the unit only available for water shuttle. Heavy winds from the north continue to push flames onto the adjacent home. Due to the heavy winds, flames and smoke, access to the second home was almost nil. Once the adjacent home ignited with the winds occurring, the home was fully engulfed within minutes. Once again, failing hydro lines became a safety hazard to the firefighters. Hydro 1 was delayed due to the weather. During our water shuttle process, we had to engage the OPP to help Gleason Avenue, help keep Gleason Avenue cleared as onlookers were blocking our access. We're also engaged with EMS in locating the homeowner that incurred injuries on the onset of the fire. Once the second home was fully engulfed, we forced our efforts on what we could save and to protect mainly a garage. During those efforts, 2 natural gas lines started to flare, adding fuel to the fire and another safety hazard for our firefighters. Firefighters continued to fight the fires till early in the morning. Conditions in the area became extremely hazardous. One fire fell due to the ice, sustaining minor injuries. Another firefighter, due to during the night, sustained a significant burn on his neck. This was due to his bunker gear becoming covered in ice and bunker gear not protecting the firefighter as designed. Once the area was deemed safe, we still had our equipment to pack up and return to our station. This was a difficult task. Our hoses were frozen in their entire length. Other items to note: firefighters that were scheduled work that evening or early or the next day missed work. Firefighters, once back to the station, had to put all their gear back into service. This took a few hours to complete. This is crucial in the event we were called to another emergency. Firefighters went home for a few hours sleep and returned to the station to finish cleaning firefighting equipment and putting everything back in service. Other items to note: training after the incident included verifying time and distance from 3 water shuttle sources. That included Talbot Lake, Raymore Fire Hall, and McEwen Mine. We also have confirmed the water infrastructure in Whole Player is not sufficient enough for the fire department to utilize fire hydrants or water treatment plant or the water treatment plant. If required, we could share the email from Aqua, and I have that here. Sorry. It should also be noted that the family of one of the homes that pretty much lost everything thanked our volunteer firefighters by delivering fruit baskets to all 3 stations. Quarterly water shuttle in Whole Tire, approximately. So this is one of the questions. Quarterly water shuttle in Whole Tire. Approximately 80% of the fires we fight in our area would require us to initiate the water shuttle protocol. If we were to conduct water shuttle protocol in all areas, we'd have no time for other trainings. We have a very large geographical footprint in Black River, Madison, and to conduct training in all of these areas would be next to impossible. The water shuttle process is something we initiate regularly, and we conduct it in a high degree of success. Water shuttle training is only a small part of our training. You'll see our training throughout the year in my monthly report. A high percent of our training is regulated by the Ontario Fire Marshal. Home inspections. Under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, Section 2A, establish a program in the municipality which must include education with respect to fire safety and certain components of fire prevention. And B, Provide other such fire protection services as determines may be necessary in accordance with its needs and circumstances. As you will note, there is no reference to our volunteer firefighters inspecting every home in our municipality every year. Throughout the year, you'll see in my monthly report reference to the fire education and prevention. Our most recent message on Facebook, change your clock, change your batteries and your smoke and seal alarms. Black River Mass and volunteer firefighters will continue to educate our community on fire education and prevention with the emphasis on working smoke and seal alarms. Note, in 2019, 39 homes in Voltaire were inspected by our volunteer firefighters and another 10 homes were visited with no one home. If you want to see the report from 2019, it's all in here. And then 2020, 21, we went into the pandemic, so we didn't do home inspections. Summary. House fires in Voltaire, January 22nd, 2000. We must implement the water shuttle protocol as we cannot utilize the water system of Voltaire. This protocol has been in place since the closure of the Ross mine. House fire in Voltaire, January 22nd, 2022. Our firefighters did not utilize the creek adjacent to Euclid Avenue. The creek adjacent to Euclid was utilized for the duration of the house fire. The portable pump ran with 2.5-inch lines without stopping. Water shuttle training in Voltaire. We conduct water shuttle training throughout the year, picking different locations and different water sources. Committing to one location in such a large geographic footprint would not be possible. Once again, water shuttle training is only one small component of our regulated training. And if you want, I actually brought one binder that shows our training. It's regulated by the Ontario Fire Marshal. That's what each firefighter has to train on. Home inspections. We are in compliance with the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. As for your volunteer firefighters to inspect every home in our municipality every year is a huge time commitment and undertaking. We will continue to promote fire prevention education in our community. Councilor Rondo stated it is a legal requirement. This is a false statement. Speaking with the fire marshal representative, they believe Councilor Rondo misinterpreted the conversation. They informed Councilor Rondo vulnerable occupancies must be inspected yearly. This is completed by our volunteer firefighters at Bingham Memorial Hospital. In closing, Black River Madison Fire Department, 100% volunteer organization. We're currently around 60% of our complement, and only 50% of those firefighters are fully trained to firefighter 1 and 2, which is this book here. We cannot afford any setbacks as per regulations. All firefighters must be certified firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 by July 1st, 2026. If not, then they may have to leave the organization. Our volunteer firefighters on average give in excess of 200 hours to the community. Negative comments to our volunteers may affect the future of our fire department. Our volunteer firefighters do not create these emergencies. They're only there to help and hopefully make things a little better. Our volunteer firefighters step up to the plate at all times. They miss their regular work duties at times, leave family functions as weddings, birthdays, and Christmas, to mention a few. They respond to an emergency for someone they may not even know. They see the unimaginable, they do the unimaginable, and help those in need, whoever they are. Our volunteer firefighters do not look for praise or a pat on the back. A little self-gratification knowing they help someone is the greatest feeling of all. Councilor Rondo, not sure what your main concern is with our volunteer firefighters. This is your fourth attempt to put a negative image on our volunteers. First was the night of the house fire. You stood in the street and critiqued our every move. Second, you went to social media painting a negative image. Third, you contacted the fire marshal's office, and now as a counselor. I admire you for stepping up to the plate to be a counselor, something I would not do, but I believe you may be abusing your powers as a counselor, paint a negative picture of our volunteer firefighters. Please use your passion to make Black River Madison a community we can all be proud to live in. Mayor and Council, if I may recommend in the future, when there are concerns raised in regards to one of our volunteer organizations, the details and context be kept in close conversation so facts can be verified. The negativity caused by misled information has the opportunity to cause irreparable damage. If you have any questions, you guys.
Does any council have any questions? Yes, Councilor Bannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps Fire Chief Lamb could explain what shuttling is for the few that might not know what shuttling even means.
That's a good question. So water shuttling is because we have basically Black River, Madison, the town of Madison is the only town that actually has working fire hydrants. Other than that, we have to put down a quarter tank, it's like a swimming pool. And we have to take our fire trucks and dump the water into that pool. We pull that water into our fire truck and we put it on the fire. It's a very complicated process. We have to determine a water source and get water from that water source and deliver it to the fire. So for example, I have a cottage at Butler Lake. We would need water shovel there. We have never practiced it at my cottage, but I'm assured they would do it without any incident.
Thank you very much, Chief Lamb. I tend to agree with a lot of your comments. And I have probably a couple of my own after, but I will allow the rest of council to comment. Councilor Wendell.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. Being a former firefighter, I do understand we do join that to save lives and protect people. We don't do it for the glory of it. It's not part of the job. In no way was I trying to diminish the volunteer firefighters because it is something that's always been close to my heart. And because I was one at one time, I did contact the fire marshal, as you were correct, and relayed the information that I was given. And I asked him 3 times, your bylaw, it's a law yearly. He said yes. He's the one who told me that it was a responsibility of the remaining responding firefighters to do it yearly. When I was a firefighter for the greater city of Sudbury, for inside Balfour Detachment specifically, was volunteer as well. And we were told then as well, that it had to be done, the law that had to be done yearly, which we did. And yes, you're right, it is a struggle. It's a volunteer thing. People have day jobs. Absolutely. We were a brigade of 25 and we were lucky for this kind of bush showing up for this stuff. But we would get it done as hard as it was. And yeah, we get knocks on the door, you get rude people, whatever. But not once was it my intention to show any negative light to any volunteer firefighter, as it always was my passion, and it was for years. And I respect everything they do. I also, now being a counselor, I brought it to question because I needed answers. I have residents that are asking for answers. Before then, I was a concerned citizen when the fire happened. So, and I saw some mistakes being made, but like you said, we are all human. No way was I any intention. So I apologize if that was what it came out to be. It is not my intention. I want answers. That's what I want. And I want a resolution to bring back to my residents, because I'm not gonna lie, all fire residents feel ignored. Especially when it comes to any kind of protection services, cops, EMS, or fire services, unfortunately. So this is me relaying what my residents are concerned about. You answered my questions and I'm satisfied with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Mondo. I do appreciate you being at least honest and forthright with the chief, because I think it's necessary, because I tend to agree with the chief that as much as everything has to be open and honest, even with our council activities, that when it becomes something of this importance, that we probably need to make sure that we complete our fact checking in advance. And I'm not trying to be negative with that. I'm trying to also be supportive of the firemen, because I do know that they put in a lot of valuable time and effort into keeping us safe. And nothing's ever perfect. Is there any other questions from council before I ask them? No further questions? I have one. Oh, yes, Councilor.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Again, I retired from the fire department this last year, in December, after 10 years, and I respect Chief Lamb and all the firefighters and an incredible group of people. I actually say they're the greatest people in our community as volunteers, just for their commitment to get out of bed when it's miserable. There's times I remember we even had the fire that was up Raven Road, it's like -40 or something that night. So again, I want to commend the chief and all the volunteers that are on there presently on staff for the things they do. And I experienced it, and I just commend these guys. Just want to make sure that's noted.
Thanks, Councilor Neal. I definitely appreciate that. And I think it's important. And the only it was more of a question, I guess, Chief Lamb, was in regards to the original resolution that we may be tabling and defeating or doing whatever we do with it. And just a question, is there like, I mean, as much as all of the information that you imparted here, is I understand and agree with 100%, but is there actually a plan of, I think I've seen something in one of your reports about so many per year. Is there actually a plan in place that there is a percentage of homes done on an annual basis outside of those with the hospitals and senior buildings, or is there a plan of any kind or not? Or is it just a hope to do it someday kind of plan? I'm just asking.
No, that's a good question. Do we have a plan in place? No. We have the same plan in place every year. What we do is we ask every firefighter to try and give up at least one evening. I was at a fire education conference this weekend, and a good example of that was they stated, this is from the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs. If you're checking 50 homes today, try checking 52 next year. So that will be our thing, is we'll try and increase our homes this year. And it's a plan that we have in place every year.
So that is the plan basically is an attempt to do as many as possible, but no real formal direction or formal plan. And my understanding, just not as a follow-up to that, without taking too much time of anybody's time, is like I know the volunteers basically operate on a point system, and the point system is based on whether it's putting water on a fire or training and all that. Is any of the home inspection part of that?
Yeah, they get, I believe it's 2 points for each night they go to do a home
So there is
inspection.
points involved, okay. Because I also realize it doesn't matter how many points you get, the bucket is still the same.
The bucket is still the same.
It's still the same, and the points value is down, so nobody wins on it. It's just the points are spread around to those that are more active.
Yeah, the more you do, the less you get.
Sounds about right.
And back to your plan, I will say though, part of the plan is our fire prevention officer. So if we do in town this year, we will do in the country next year. If we do in town of Rainmore this year, we'll try and get the whole fire next year. The same as up the corridor to Shillington, and we have a very huge footprint.
I understand.
So when we do the rural area, we may get 1 to 5 houses that night, depending if everybody's home. You gotta travel miles just to get a couple homes.
You know, pre-COVID, I know in Valbroni it used to get done because fairly regular.
Yeah.
Maybe not every year, but close.
When you had more volunteers.
Actually, I'm happy to say is Bill Gagne is almost full complement.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Yes, sir. Sorry. That's fine. I don't see it.
Chief, in order to help you out with that. If you would like to provide us with, I'll come up with some attributes with respect to inspections and maybe we can work together. And as you do those inspections each year, we can hit them in the GIS system, which means then the following year, we can print out and say, oh, by the way, you did all these guys here, and maybe you want to go there. So it might be easy to track it for you as well, but I'll send you an email.
Yeah, that'd be good, because we're actually doing that now, but it's manual.
Yeah, so the GIS system, I mean, you can have access to it, so it'll be very easy.
Yeah, that would help.
Yes, Councilor Neil?
One more question for the chief, which I know, so right now, when volunteers are going to the doors and they see infractions, enforcement. Can you mention about enforcement for infractions and people's unwillingness to let us into their buildings?
So unfortunately, Councilor Rondo actually alluded to this. We've actually had firefighters verbally abused. And I mean, not just a little bit, like over and above what you would think somebody would do, and you're trying there to help them. But we also bring smoke and seal alarms with us, and we will actually put them in those homes. It is a cost to municipality, but at the end of the night,
It's a saving.
our volunteer firefighters can sleep knowing that they left working smoke and seal alarms. Are we in 100% compliance in our community? Not even close.
So if we ever get to a point where we actually have our bylaw officer in place, that will, part of their role is be part of the enforcement on that. I would assume, like, I mean, obviously the bylaw officer isn't gonna go to every house
Yeah.
and check on every CO detector either, but that would be part of their role.
Yes,
Enforcement, right?
yes and no. So technically it's me that would lay the fine.
Okay,
which, I can be honest with you, I laid a fine once in Bull Fire. And, when I went to court, I was sitting there with my suit on and I was sitting with the family member who his kids could have died in that house fire. And it was thrown out of court because I didn't put the postal code.
Oh, my God.
So, just for council's information, the chief maybe have a little bit more information. So we converted our bylaw process to an administrative monetary fine, which means there's no court. People get a fine, they can come and appeal it to a referee by a local referee. But, it's not the same as court. So what the chief just described, we never have. And if they don't pay, then their license can be suspended and it can be collected. That's probably makes the whole system easier and less of a burden on those that are responsible for enforcing.
Especially when you have time off work for the court.
yes, Councilor Burke.
Through your worship, Chief, is there any way that just as a council, we can maybe speak to our each individual towns, you know, township people? Like I have Raymore, for instance, go around and, you know, if we went and helped out on our own time, you know, to try and, I was there the night of that fire. I was working. And to be honest with you, I don't want to see anybody lose their homes. So if there's any way that we can help out, I have no problem going.
Yes, Council, yeah, thank you, Councilor Burke. Councilor Bennett, one more question?
Like, Mr. Mayor, it, I guess it's a comment or a question, but just to give a bigger picture of a house inspection, it's not just knocking on the door and asking, do you have a smoking alarm and seal detector? The page that we go through as firemen is a full page in length. And it's deals with electrical, so you have to view the electrical panel. Check the smoke seal alarms, garbage, debris, stuff in the way getting in and out of doors.
Stairways, blah, 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 you name it.
Yeah, it's intense, so just so people don't think that we're in 2 minutes.
No.
You're a good half an hour. Small community, you know the person, so you're gonna be, you know, talking a little bit. But in also response to Councilor Brewer's mentioning there, we've gone to homes where we've inspected 1 year and go back next year later and they fail again. In today's society, you think with social media and their ticker tapes on watching Netflix and all these things, everybody knows you need a smoke and a seal alarm, everybody. But these residents are choosing not to. So after a while, it gets frustrating. So yeah, you can go and you can talk to your neighbor, but unless you see him put in, and I'm sure the chief will attest, you put it in, you go back next day and it's down again. Because they cooked and something burned, so it's a big mountain to climb, and that's my comment.
Well, that's good, and unless there's any other comments, I just, oh, sorry, I didn't see you.
Just a question, maybe,
Yes, ma'am.
a question I don't even know the answer to. Who is it? Do we call, if a resident has a concern for somebody who needs to be inspected, something that's not safe? Do they contact you? Do they go through the township?
Something not safe in their own home or somebody else's
That's a
home.
complete fire hazard. That will be a potential fire hazard, like installing an old wood stove that's not wet tested or certified
So
and sealing your windows from the inside out.
I only have certain jurisdiction.
Okay,
It's, my jurisdiction is pretty high when there's children involved.
okay,
So I hate to say this, but I have had to go to homes where we've almost had to remove children from
Yeah.
homes. We've been able to come to an agreement. But just to go to any person's home, if I can't show immediate threat to life, especially when there's not children
if-
there.
what if this building is surrounded by abandoned buildings, and if one goes up, you're looking at multiple, like a
You're
whole
getting
block
more,
building.
you're getting more into a bylaw than. bylaw.
That's,
That would
that's
be-
the, yeah, that's the, that's, okay, that's,
So that would be in the chief.
okay,
Good, that's good. I
Thank
think that clarifies a lot of questions and answers, and still rest of it.
So, Mr. Mayor, there's a motion on the table. Council has a few choices. We could still have a decision on the motion, whether it's carried or defeated. Or council can choose to just remove the motion from the table. 2/3 consent could just say remove the motion.
I'm okay with the motion being.
You're okay with removing it? Yes, Councilor
I'll
Neal?
second it.
Councilor Ryan, you'd be okay with removing?
Yes.
I see everybody's nodding their head, so we can just remove the, and Chief Lamb, I thank you very, very much for coming here in person, taking time away from your life again. And taking time away from all the other stuff you could be doing, but at least you clarified the situation and by doing that, I think it really made things a lot better. And please pass along, and if I get a chance to talk to them, I mean, I talked to one or two of your firemen today. On behalf of myself, thank you very much for all the efforts you put in, and my apologies as the mayor, if anybody was insulted. That's definitely not the intention. I think everybody around this table is looking for the best for the community and the best for our firefighters.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Chief Lamb.
Thank you.
Good night. And then we're gonna move on to 9A then. So we had a report from our CAO that I'm sure that everybody's possibly had a chance to read, but I'm sure Chris is going to expand on a little bit or discuss a little bit further, Chris.
Once you give me a mover in a
Oh,
second.
I need to move it a second before we can go there. Sorry, I got Councilor Neal and Councilor McGann.
Moved by Councillor Neil, seconded by Councillor Gadri, that council proceed with recommendation number 3 as reflected in report CAO 2023-07. And move forward with the solar array portion of the project. And that the additional cost of $260,252.20 be funded from the Canada Community Building Fund Conditional Reserve.
Chris, did you want to expand on all this before we go to a vote?
So in April 2021, we applied to the Federal Green and Inclusive Fund to update the Green Miller. That particular fund is looking towards ways to displace greenhouse gas. The application included 4 major items. One was the purchase of an electric ice resurfacer. The current one is propane. The purchase of a new ice plant, so that's the plant that actually makes the ice. Purchase of a new compressor, which keeps the humidity out of the building. And the purchase and installation of a solar array that would power the Vernon Community Center on a net metering basis. So total funding, or the total project, as we put in the application, was about 1.1 million, with 80% of that coming from Canada, 20% from the township. When we got it back, it was approved, and Canada would pay $888,768, $222,192 by the township, and that's split 80% for the feds. So we issued an RFP, and before the RFP closed, the compressor suffered a catastrophic failure, so we got the feds to replace that, whatever is in the RFP process. That left us with 3 components, and that would have been the electric ice resurfacer, the ice plant, and the solar array. We moved forward with purchasing, as a result of the RFP, an electric ice resurfacer and new ice plants that was purchased from Simcoe Refrigeration for $146,500 and $285,000 respectively. So the last component was the whole solar array. So with the whole material supply chain and COVID and all that, obviously prices changed and it came in a little higher than what we anticipated. So the project is looking at a shortfall with this passing at $260,000. And so Cassandra and I started talking about how we might fund this as opposed to, well, there are other methods we could use, right? And so I said, look, if we go to the federal gas tax and we get the money out of there for that for the entire project, which is 400 and something thousand, and we get the money from the feds, the ratepayer has paid 0 for this entire upgrade. The state gas tax comes in whatever. So that really works well. If we do that, the savings that are anticipated through the solar array are about let's see, 600,000. Sorry, between $491,000 and $605,000 over 20 years. So you're looking at about $30,000 a year. And that's gonna come right off our levy, right? It's gonna reduce our levy, notwithstanding other price increases elsewhere. In terms of maintenance to the solar array probably won't require any huge maintenance over the first 20 years. The system is usually pretty good. In terms of snow, we've contact Mr. Lindsay, who's not sitting here, who clears the snow from the day once a day work. That would be a big deal for him just to clear ours. It's like it's gonna be a brown out solar, one of the big panels that we've probably seen. Tracker. There's supposed to be a sun tracker, so we'll move into sun. Be located on the Highway 11 side of the arena, just at the back, will take up about 2 hectares. We've been able to ascertain that we will not have to put cable under the ground, we come through the air, which saves some money as well. So what I'm here asking the council to do is to allow us to move ahead for the extra 260,000. So we would be in for percentage. Canada would be in for 65, almost 65%. The townships 35% would come from the federal gas tax, which means 100% from federal. Not a diamond tax, but it's money. The good thing about federal gas tax is the same as what we told you, is it's renewable, right? Comes in every year. And so projects like these, federal government and LAS, who is administers the federal gas, they love it. So we're gonna put it in front of the board, make sure that this should council decide.
Yes, Councilor.
Question for Chris. So we're taking the money from the federal gas tax. Was that funds used before for operation for the council?
No, you can't use it for operation. Councilor, it has to be used for capital projects, and even then there's it's not a real broad interpretation, it's narrow. So displacing greenhouse gas, and that includes like paving roads and stuff, that displaces a certain amount of greenhouse gas. So, but it is allowed, solar is allowed.
Thanks very much. Yes, Sandra.
So to council, so you can accumulate your gas tax, so your annual payments, which are about 152,000. You can accumulate that up to, I believe, 5 years, and then you have to start using it. So Black River Maston has not used its gas tax for quite some time now, so it's actually accumulated up to close to $1 million. Should council approve this tonight, 400,000 will be taken from that, so you'll have 600,000 left over. Also recognizing that you're also going to be getting another payment this year. But that will go further into that when we start answering the life.
There's still going to be some money left.
Yeah.
Now, you should understand federal gas tax is held in reserves. It's a restricted reserve. You know, we use it for certain things that between the government and the townships described in the contract. So it is in reserves, but it's in restricted reserve.
Any other questions before I go to that? Yes.
And to go off what the CAO just mentioned, so it's in a reserve, it's also in a high interest savings account, along with your NORS funding and your OSIP funding, and it's earning really great interest, which you can, it's obviously compounded and it increases your balance for your gas tax.
But it is time to start trying to do something with it, and if we can do something with it, that's even better than net metering, because it's net gains, because based on what you're telling me, and it's gonna be the same as I guess, but based on what you've been presenting tonight is that it's not only going to be basically 100% funded by the federal government, it's gonna make this municipality look good and be a real strong climate change effort. And when the government's starting to look at communities that are putting a lot of effort into that, we're going to be high on the list for the next percentage, maybe, and maybe not. But and then on top of that, we're also gaining on our annual operating budget by reducing our electrical costs at the arena.
The higher the electrical rates go, the more we will spend.
Yeah.
The other thing is that. So, we're gonna use this fund, we're gonna dip into it for the new portion of this office. We're gonna see how we can manipulate that, but if we've already done a geotech project, and they say, hey, these guys have their act together, and it potentially, yeah. I'll tell you a little story about the federal gas tax. So previously planned, I did 6 rooftop solar projects. For which we paid out of the federal gas tax. Actually, we didn't pay it for it. set up a venture between the township. Internal venture, so the township through the annual budget, we would pay that back into reserves. And meanwhile, we were getting 81.3 cents a kilowatt hour for this, for the energy that we created. It was not net integrated as a cash payment. So the interesting thing about setting up that debenture is it comes out of the federal gas tax. It goes in, we pay for the stuff, we pay the debenture back into the reserves. But it's not federal gas tax thing, so it has no restrictions on it. So sometimes when you pay attention to these, you can work things out. In this case, I don't recommend doing that simply because we have that federal gas tax. And there'll be a net return to the operating levy with respect to the reduction.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate all that update and that was enough. Is there any other questions regarding this? Before we get moving, that we actually, yes.
No, I was gonna
You're
leave.
good. Second already. Sorry.
Yes.
I talked so long and whatever, I forgot that we actually did it. So we've actually already actually read the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution? Seeing no objections, carried. Must be old age. Thank you very much for the hard work on that, Chris.
So the next item, Mr. Mayor, says what has been removed from the consent agenda. So the first item is the clerk treasurer's monthly report.
Okay.
Then following that, it'll be the fire chief's monthly report.
So
So I'm gonna move in a second.
move it second to Councilor Brewer and Councilor Gannon.
It's moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Gadry, that council received the clerk treasurer February monthly report CTA 2023-03 as information.
Since they were removed, is there a question? Yes, Councilor Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, just want to confirm. Page 7, Schedule C, Building Department. Says current year-to-date number of permits 3 and said previous year-to-date 94. Does that mean that the same time last year we had 94 permits?
Sorry, no,
Yes, go ahead.
if I can, Mr. Mayor, that's the entire year.
Okay.
So actually a really great observation. No,
Okay,
so when it's previous year to date, it should say annual.
okay.
So I can make that.
Yeah, no, I just thought we were down by hundreds of percent.
Yeah, no.
And actually, this time of year, three building permits in Northern Ontario isn't too bad, I guess. Anyway, thanks. Any other questions or concerns? If not, then I'll ask for a vote on the resolution. All those in favor? Carried.
So I'll need a mover and a seconder, Mr. Mayor, for the fire chief's monthly report.
Councillor Neal and Councillor Rondo.
Moved by Councillor Neil, seconded by Councillor Rondo, that council received the fire department February monthly report FC 2023-02 as information.
I'm assuming there must be a question there. Yes, Councilor Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one comment. At the end of Chief's fire prevention education section, it indicates that one officer delivered a fire prevention awareness talk to Waukesha First Nation. Just to let everyone know that that gentleman took a half day off from work to go and do that. So when we come up to volunteer, a volunteer week, I think in early April, that's the type of thing that
Should be recognized.
that's what our firemen are doing. They're taking time from his personal life and his vacation that he'll never get back to go and help surrounding community. So I just want to make that, make people aware of.
Really noted. Thank you very much, Councilor Bennett. And no other comments? Questions, concerns? Okay, then I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried.
You're not entertaining this.
I thought so.
Okay.
Keep moving down fast enough, but sometimes pay attention. So we're gonna go into 11A under unfinished business. Committees of council update and appointment. With the first time, we need to move her to seconder again. We got Councilor Brewer and Councilor Gadry.
Moved by Councillor Brewer, seconded by Councillor Gadry, that council appoint the following individuals to the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee. Councillor Blank and Francis Lambert, And that council continue to advertise on Facebook, the township website, and quarterly bulletin. And that council should make efforts to seek out and contact potential applicants.
So number one thing before we move forward, that I need a volunteer or voluntold. We have Councillor Neal and Councillor Brewer. You want me to flip a coin, or does somebody want to just,
Can they not both be on the committee?
I mean, yes, our terms of references on the book.
Your terms of reference only speak to one council member. However, their council's terms of reference, you can also amend them to reflect two council members.
And we have that much interest, I don't think it's a bad thing, personally.
I think it should be admitted.
Is that a motion being moved?
I would say that Councilor Rondo was moving a motion that we're going to amend our terms of reference. And instead of flipping a coin, then we can have two passionate people involved.
Especially. Especially seeing that it's a new committee,
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing.
no, it isn't.
So
Yes, but
there is rule in your committee appointments. So if you end up with two council members and members from the public on this committee, it then is a committee that requires advertising of meetings. Open to the public. It will require you to be investigated by the some of the thought things on this. So you have to be careful of that. So I would suggest before we meet, maybe you might want to think about
people on
at least two more,
Okay.
then you don't have to balance.
Well, I was gonna speak to that at some point, Chris, but thanks for the advice. Yes.
But then again, they wouldn't be able to meet anyway, they don't have quorum.
Okay, but I was thinking maybe
They don't,
that you were gonna want to revise the term of reference, right?
the motion is being,
As long as we're gonna carry it to, we should be able to think of it.
yeah, because they wouldn't even be able to meet now, there's not enough appointed to it to be quorum.
Yes, Councilor Banner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe we should consider two passionate council members. We also have some roles to fill with Dan DeMarchi in the interim, so maybe one of the councilor would want to switch over and take over for Dan in his absence. Or throughout.
Those boards, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
So if I can to that comment, typically what happens with that, instead of constantly shuffling council members around, whomever ends up being appointed assumes those roles. So again, it's just for your information. It is your decision if you want to start shifting things around. How it's been handled in the past though, is whomever assumes that role takes on those appointments.
So, and we can look with that for the time being, it's not gonna impact anything seriously. I mean, it's obviously when somebody misses the impact from you.
Well, as of right now, I don't believe Councillor DeMarchi was appointed to any committees that are currently meeting. Right now, it's committee of adjustment that can meet and the planning committee, and he was not appointed to either one.
Okay, so we're okay for now. So anyway, we have a mover, I need a seconder for this, yes, Councilor again. And now what we do is adjust the terms of records to allow for two councilors and everything else to stay the same for that.
So the motion is just going to direct staff to bring back the terms of reference to a following council meeting, and at that council meeting, council can then pass a motion to adjust the terms of reference.
Sounds good.
Yes, just put one more thing. Cassandra and I talked about this too. And quite often when communities are having difficult times to attract volunteers to certain committees, what they use is committee of the whole system. So committee of the whole system is council. Plus you could bring other people in this case, there's one volunteer. And the council would have a chair, in this case of recreation, that person would run that committee of the whole meeting. That allows for a freer exchange of information, a little more or less informal in that council meetings. Still have to take minutes and all that type of thing, and you're sacrificing one council meeting month in order to do that. Not suggesting at this point we go there, but that is a way you can actually.
And I was gonna open the floor to that about our committees at some point. I was just gonna make a suggestion, though, that if you, when it does come up about all the advertising, all the rest of the good stuff. Since we've been doing that and spending money on doing it and not getting very far with it. And as far as the rec committee, only getting one, and we're still missing several other people from other committees. I was actually hoping that Councilor Drew had a suggestion about wanting to do home inspections. I got a better idea. I'd like you to find us some members for our committees. Like you browbeat some of your constituents, and it doesn't have to be just in Raymore. you're in a good place to browbeat people daily. And I would like each council, it would be really great if each councillor could find one body of some kind for something. And right now, that rec committee, I think, would be really, really great to have. And you know, I mean, I know there's been questions and concerns about outdoor rinks and arenas and ball fields and all kinds of stuff. And actually, just for your information, before, I shouldn't be balancing one, I know we gotta read this resolution, keep moving. But this individual, I had reached out, he's from Belgrani. And he's passionate about, he's passionate about getting the ball field back, and Chris has been working in the background, getting the Belgrani ball field back to the community. And Chris has confirmed, there's nothing signed yet, but he's in the background working, and something's gonna happen. That he's quite confident, am I saying, I'm not speaking out of turn, Chris? He's pretty confident that we are gonna end up with the ball field as part of our assets at some point. And Francis has asked me, and I talked to Chris about it, and Chris said yes. Francis has already got a small committee of his own in Belgrani that's preparing, and he wanted to be able to start the process to actually start up a bunch of different ball leagues. You know, between adult ball leagues, kids ball leagues, he's got all kinds of ideas. And when you get somebody that passionate about doing something, you don't turn them away. So anyway, we do have a resolution. Instead of me battling all night, we'll read the resolution and move forward.
So this is just the amendment that will.
Okay, we'll do the amendment first, yes.
Moved by Councillor Rondo, seconded by Councillor Battery, and that council directs staff to bring back the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee terms of reference to adjust the terms of reference to reflect 2 members of council.
Perfect. All those in favor of the resolution? Seeing no objections, carried.
So I can read the original motion.
Please, Councilor.
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Battery, that council appoint the following individuals to the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee: Councillor Neal and Councillor Drewer, Francis Lambert, and that council continue to advertise on Facebook, the township website, and quarterly bulletin, and that council should make efforts to seek out and contact potential applicants. And finally, that council directs staff to bring back the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee terms of reference to adjust the terms of reference to reflect 2 members of council.
Sounds good to me. All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried. Thank you very much. Paul. Yes, Councilor.
Your worship, for a point of clarification now for the committee. How many members do we need to have? We have the 2 council members plus 1 community, so how many more would we need to?
Well, I mean, yes, go ahead, Cal. You can stand there. Like,
If I can,
Yeah.
Mr. Councillor Neal, you're talking about the recreation?
Yes.
You need 3 more. For your accessibility committee, you need
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
For your museum, you need 3, and for your senior advisory, you need 3.
yes, Councilor.
Again, so each person that, again, if we recruit people, they still have to come and be approved by this council, correct?
Their name's gonna have to be added to the resolution, yes.
Application. Perfect.
And the application process does not be onerous, as far as I'm concerned, unless council thinks otherwise. I think just a simple email or whatever to the clerk would be satisfactory. Yes.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, so that's what you've been doing. I wouldn't encourage you to change it.
So keep it simple. Just simple. Any other questions, concerns? Yes.
Really interesting. Can actually see on one committee.
We'll get to that.
I'm just saying.
It's just like councils are serving in more than one committee. People can too. Multiple interests.
I know where I'm going this week.
There you go. It's good. All right, well, thank you. Let's just keep it moving then. So, was there also something on that, was there a separate memo on this on the committee council memo?
No, Mr. Mayor.
We're good? It's all part of ours? Okay. So then other business, there's nothing, and we've actually gonna have, we've added a closed session. Or do we have something else that I missed? I don't think I missed anything.
No, Mr. Mayor.
So we got a resolution, I need to move in a second to committee close. Moved by Councilor Drewer, kind of seconded by Councilor Gattari.
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Gattari, that council now comes into a portion of the meeting that shall be closed to the public at 7:54 PM. In accordance with section 239 subsection 2 clause D of the municipal act, in order to discuss labor relations, employee negotiations regarding negotiation position for upcoming collective agreement renewal. And section 239 subsection 2 clause B, personal identifiable individual regarding staffing level update.
In favor of going into closed? Carried, thank you. Yeah, we're